Welcome to the third part of this Params series. In this episode, you'll see how to use the fields for and the index option to create a new parent model with multiple child models. This is a little bit more involved, and it happens when you're working on a real project. So this is very helpful to know how to do this kind of a thing, and it's also very user-friendly scenarios where you want to put the user in control and you don't want them to go through several different screens to get something done, especially during checkout. You could have multiple order line items when you're creating an order, and you might be trading through the line items, and you could also display the corresponding and name of the product, the description, and you may also provide some kind of input value for the quantity, so users that don't have to like go back and forth, and it makes a faster checkout process. So this example can be expanded upon, and most likely if I get to the checkout process example, I'll also show that complicated example in another screencast. For this one, I will just stick to the example in the stephenshoe.com blog post, and that material covers the basics. So let's get started. I've already created a new project, and in this project we are going to have three models. Reader will have, I think this one, only one attribute, and then we'll also have a magazine at a model that also has name, and we also have another model which is subscriptions, this basically will contain the reference to the magazine and the reader, so that we know who has subscribed to what magazine. I'm making this a full-blown model. Assume that there are more attributes or subscriptions, like when the subscriptions was created, for instance, and since I have the timestamps, I know when the subscription was created. Could also have updated at, basically will give you when the previous time the user updated their subscription, maybe they upgraded or did something, so we can track other attributes related to subscription. So we have the migrations, and let's start with the migrations. This is fine. We have name, subscription, okay, this is also fine. Now let's create the associations between those three models we just created. So we can say magazine has many subscriptions, has many readers, through subscriptions, using has many through. So we have subscription sitting between the magazine and reader. Okay, so magazine has many subscriptions, which is in the middle, and magazine has many readers, one beyond the subscription, saying that it has to go through the subscriptions. Okay, it has no direct knowledge of it. Rails will automatically resolve all those joins and things for you, and it will create a efficient query to find all the readers who are subscribed to a particular magazine, for instance. We don't have to worry about those things. Just need to know how to set them up. And in the reader, we are going to have similar declaration. reader has many subscriptions, has many magazines, but it needs to go through the subscriptions table. And we'll also have validates associated subscriptions, since we will have more than one model in the form and we don't want to be validating manually in the action of that in the action method in the controller. We'll use this and let the active record validate the subscriptions for us. So the subscription has to be valid when the user enters some value through the input form. And what does the subscription model look like? The subscription will have two declarations. It belongs to reader and belongs to magazine. And we have to generate a controller. The index action will be the same thing that we had before. We'll just load all the readers. And then we'll also have a new action. And then we will just create an instance of new. We saw this thing in first episode why we need that. With new we have create which goes along with the new. You can say reader equals reader dot new params of reader, and then we're going to have some more additional thing which will come here. For now I just want to save it. I'll come back to it once I show you the view. I'll save this. Just redirect to readers URL. Just go to the index page. Okay, now we are ready to create some views. So if I can load them in the browser and see how it's going to work. I'm just going to cheat a little bit and just copy paste the view code. Maybe you already know what the index is going to look like. It's the same thing that we had in the previous two episodes. So we have index html.erb. We just loop the readers and display. This requires some explanation. I will come to it in a bit. Edit will have the form. Okay, here the form for reader, this name attribute belongs to this reader object, and here I'm dynamically generating a drop down box and displaying all the magazines available, and it's going to use fields for, and we switch the context from this reader object to the subscriptions object, and we create all this collection field which is going to belong to the subscription active record object. And in index I'm just displaying the reader's name, and then since we already have the active record association set up, as many magazines, it should be plural, and similarly readers. Okay, so we can access that active record association. Reader magazines will give me everything I need. Magically, active record does all the join and gives that corresponding objects. So we can look through each magazine for that reader and print what magazine that particular reader has subscribed. That's index. Reader magazine has similar association, and the edit form has this input field. So let's see. Actually, we need first create a new before we can edit. So we will create a new HTML ERB, and then we will define a edit and update action later once we get this new thing working. So new form also looks very similar to the edit form. We have this reader, form for is using it, and this the attribute belonging to the reader object, and we loop through each. Actually, this is hard coded. We can actually base this thing on the number of records in the database. For instance, how many subscriptions they might be having, how many magazines we might be having. The user can actually subscribe, right? Or we could have something similar along that lines. So we have fields for subscriptions, and then we have this collection select box, which is a drop-down box with all the magazine names. Okay, now we can declare the routes. The routes will have just one declaration. I just want to check, okay, this routes is fine. Let's create all the tables. Oh, we need to actually create some test magazines, so the drop-down will have some values. Let's create some magazines here in the migration itself. Magazine. So if you have test record, then it's easier for us to play with. So let's do let's nuke everything and start all over. This will rerun all the migrations and we'll have some test records. Okay. Let's see if we can create some records. Readers. I should go to new. Okay. Ruby Digest and Linux channel. Let me create this. Initialize constant Ruby reader : subscription. What's the problem? Let's do it again. Readers new. Okay, there it is. Ruby Digest, Linux channel. Let's create this. Oops. It's not displaying the actual subscription. And why is that? Oh, I see the problem. Okay. Reader has many magazines through subscriptions. Insert into readers. This is the name, and it did not do insert into the thing because I said I'll come back to it, but I didn't come back to this thing here. So now it's time to create the subscriptions also. Subscriptions equals reader dot subscriptions dot build. See, we have the association in the reader right here. Dot subscriptions, since we have this declaration, we can do that. Let's go back. And then we use the build, which is provided by the active record. And then you can give the params subscriptions dot values. Here is the trick. It gives all the values. When you're building this, you're passing in all the values to it. Okay. And in the new, see, we are using this index thing. Here is the trick. Since we are using this index option, what happens is when you submit the form, let's go back. Daffy, Ruby Digest, and Linux journal. Do a create. Okay, Daffy subscription is Ruby Digest Linux journal. See, in the params hash, what happened? You can see name is Daffy. Subscriptions reader hash has name value, which has one key and one value, whereas here subscriptions is another hash. See what's happening. Since you're using index, we have 1, 2, 3, however number of things you're creating on the fly in the view. Using the index, these guys get passed to. Magazine ID is 1, magazine ID is 2, all the things they are subscribing to. So you can see in the params hash being passed in. And it's creating that record here for the reader. And then the subscriptions also, it's inserting the values. Which reader ID and what values it's inserting. So reader ID is 2 and the magazine ID is 1. Reader ID is 2, magazine ID is 2. So it did a 2 insert into the subscriptions table. So that particular user, Daffy, has 2 subscriptions, as you can see here. And in the view also says it has 2 subscriptions. So that's how the index option helps us to dynamically generate these form fields. And in the controller code, it's very concise. You just use the build and then you pass in all the values. Params subscriptions dot values will give only these guys magazine and these hashes will be given. Let's play with this a little bit. I'll just take this, copy this, and I'll go to the IRB session. I will paste it like this. Okay, subscriptions. Okay, now let's say subscriptions. Um, is an empty hash. I want to associate that subscription hash with this thing. Like this. Now if I say subscriptions dot values, it will only give me these guys. That's what we need. On the server side, we have an array which consists of hashes, and we build the subscriptions using the fact that active record build method can accept an array of hashes like this. And this simplifies the code a lot on the controller and makes it concise and much easier to maintain. One more thing we can do is we can also do an edit. Since we already have a view for edit, we just need to add the edit and update methods to the controller, and we can be done with this exercise. Edit. I will have a reader. I need to load them. And subscriptions is nothing but the subscription for that particular reader. When you click on the edit link, we will know what the reader's ID is, and we will load all the corresponding values for the edit form to render the current values for those fields. And during the update, we will have reader.find params of ID. We can do reader.attributes. We have seen these attributes in earlier series. It's just a way of getting hold of all the attributes in that active record object. And then we can do reader dot subscriptions dot update. And here is the trick. Subscription keys. What are the things you're updating? These are the keys and the new values for those keys that you need to update. Dot values. Compare this to the create. We here have to provide the key and the value. And when you do a save, both of them will get saved. It'll just redirect to, if it succeeds, I'll just redirect here. If it fails, you need to render the form again so the user can correct. I'm just going to leave that alone for now. Let's load the edit. Now we have the edit link here. Daffy subscription, Ruby Digest and Linux channel. Watch as I edit Daffy subscription. First will be Ruby Digest and then Linux channel. Okay, let's go back and start the server. Go back. Line number 32. Update params of keys, comma, params dot values. Okay. Let's go back. Edit this. Ruby Digest and magazine underscore ID. Collections select raiders edit.html magazine underscore ID magazine.find all ID name and then index okay, edit is wrong. We need something along the lines of, this is the edit form. It's actually, this is for the create. In edit, we have something like this. Subscription.id is the index. We're going to index it based on that. For each of the subscription, in the subscriptions for that reader, we have actually loaded the subscriptions in the edit action. We're looping through it, and then we are saying that for that particular subscription object, I want to load this form and load all the magazine, and the subscription.id is the index. Let's go back and try again. Okay, there it is. We go back. Ruby Digest is number 1, Linux channel is number 2. So Ruby Digest number 1, Linux channel is 2. Okay, I'll just select the first one. Second one is this. Save it. Linux is first, Ruby Digest is second. Linux is first, Ruby Digest second. For this won't make much of a sense practically. Like it's more of a learning tool rather than some user interface making sense in this kind of a domain. But I think you get the idea. The critical idea is how to write actions which are much more concise using these params. How the params gets passed in from the view to the controller. So you have, in the edit case, let's see what the value is. Here it did an update. As you can see, the reader object, reader hash has this. This is the hash for that. And then here, for the subscription, see this? It has passed in a hash of hashes. It has passed in a hash which contains hashes with keys as the subscription ID that contains the magazine IDs for which that user has subscribed. This is coming from this edit form here, collection select, and we are using the index trick again in order to edit that particular values. So that's it for this screencast, and if you enjoyed it, please recommend me on working with Rails. Thank you.